Chapter 20. I hugged my waist, my gaze lingering on a vibrant piece of Spanish art from old Cuba that hung just inside the door. I'd watched it through the window as we pulled into the driveway, its bold, defiant colors clashing with the quiet melancholy settling in my chest. This was it, my final night under John's roof. As he parked the car, I kept my head down, watching his profile through the safety of my sunglasses. Tomorrow, I moved out. Tomorrow, my life as an independent woman truly began. I hoped Victoria would visit. I hoped, with a desperate ache I didn't want to admit, that John might show up too. Our date had been a disaster, a mess of grief and sharp words where I'd kicked him while he was already down. The engine cut out, leaving us in a heavy, ringing silence. I studied the sharp line of his jaw. Despite the emotional whiplash of the last few weeks, his presence still felt like home. Maybe once the shadow of the funeral faded, we actually stood a chance. Dating John was the prize I'd spent a lifetime wanting and a lifetime assuming I'd never have. I didn't dare to hope for a future, but tonight, I just wanted him. John took my hand, his grip firm and grounding as he led me from the garage into the house. The click of the door locking behind us sounded so final. I looked at him, the urge to simply throw myself into his arms nearly overwhelming my common sense. Before I could say a word, John turned. He didn't hesitate this time. He caught my face in his hands and kissed me with a sudden, searing intensity that made the rest of the world drop away. I stumbled back, nearly jarring a vase of flowers by the door, but he didn't let go. He pulled me closer, his lips demanding and desperate, as if he were trying to memorize the taste of me. My hands raked up his chest, needing to feel the reality of him. He tasted of the wine we'd shared and the crisp night air. My fingers found the hem of his shirt, seeking the warmth of his skin, and I felt a shiver run through him that echoed my own. John, I breathed against his lips. He pulled back just an inch, his voice a low, rough growl. Tell me to stop. I lifted my chin, looking directly into the blue of his eyes. Take me to your room. I let my purse drop to the floor, forgotten. Hand in hand, he led me down the hallway. When he pushed open the door, the room was dimly lit. The bed unmade, a rare sign of disarray in his otherwise disciplined life. You haven't had anyone in to clean? I asked softly, stepping into his private sanctuary. I haven't wanted anyone else in here, he admitted, his voice dropping an octave. He stepped toward me, his expression softening into something raw and protective. I just wanted you to be safe. I reached out, placing my palms against his heart. It was racing. Don't talk about threats tonight. Just kiss me. He didn't need to be told twice. His hand brushed my cheek, his touch sending a jolt of electricity through me that made my breath hitch. He swept my hair back, his gaze lingering on my face as if I were something precious, something he was terrified to lose. When his lips met mine again, the fireworks weren't just a cliche. They were a total eclipse of everything else. The house, the move, the uncertainty of tomorrow, it all faded into the background. There was only the scent of him, the heat of his body against mine, and the steady, rhythmic thrum of two hearts finally syncopating. He moved with a sudden, urgent grace, his hands finding the zipper of my dress. I leaned into him, surrendering to the weight of a lifetime of longing. Every touch was an answer to a question I'd been too afraid to ask. As we moved toward the bed, the air between us felt charged, thick with the kind of gravity that pulls stars together. I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the reflection of my own need in his eyes. In that moment, there were no more barriers, no more secrets. There was only the quiet music of our breathing and the promise of a night that belonged entirely to us. As he drew me down onto the sheets, the rest of the world vanished, leaving us alone in the soft velvet dark. Chapter 21. Alice woke up entwined in John's strong arms. Cedar and pine tickled her nose. I felt protected and warm as I lay beside him. I turned and stared at John, whose eyes were still closed. The sheets were entwined around our naked bodies, revealing the tattoo on his arm. The black ink of roses was something I hadn't expected. The last time I saw him in short sleeves had been at a high school football game. One day, I might get to ask him where the tattoo came from. I hugged my waist and flipped toward the edge of the bed. If I stuck around, I'd buy him a muscle shirt to let him show it off. He must have done it out of protest years ago. Until last night, I had never found tattoos exciting. Right now, I shouldn't either. I had to get on with my life. I untangled myself from the sheets, careful not to wake him as I kissed his forehead. Time to leave the fairy tale. No more designer dresses that were way out of my budget. No more fantasy dates, no more Prince Charming. None of it existed long term, and it was time to get my life together. I dressed in last night's clothes and slipped out the door. The hallway was still dark as I made my way back to my room. As I packed, the sun peeked above the horizon, sending light through the blinds in the guest bedroom. Finished taking what I'd come with, I zipped my bag. If I stayed, I'd never want to leave this life. or John. One day, once the funeral was a memory, he'd realized that he belonged to the House of Morgan. He could never be just mine. My mother would tell me that the real world required toughness. I let out a sigh. For the past few days, I hadn't solved any of my own problems. The Morgans had taken over my every thought. Now I needed to be there for my parents and myself. At my new condo, I'd be able to think clearly. I peered through the sliver of window at the front door into the dim morning light. The house at my back was pitch black, but the sound of the waves as they splashed against the shore played outside. In the dream, I'd never leave this place, but Alice Collins never lived in a dream. First, I went and released the security code. Then I unlocked the door and departed. The grass was wet with dew as I passed through the lawn to where my SUV was parked in the driveway to the right of the house. I threw my bag in the back seat and rushed to get inside myself. A chill raced up my spine, but I ignored it as I realized my keys were in the car waiting for me. A moment later, the car engine roared to life. I glanced up and down the street and then at the house one more time. John Morgan was the man I would always crave, and my crush on him had grown into love. I backed out of the driveway and headed toward my new condo. I refused to get mopey or weepy. I was not Cinderella. No one forced me to do anything. If John and I were to have a future, it would need to be much later after we'd gotten our lives sorted. I wasn't against dating, but I had to live for myself too. Before I met John, I spent months picking my first condo, painting it in yellow and white with a blue trim. The furniture was soft golden oak to let more sunshine in, and my place was the first thing that would ever truly be mine. First and foremost, after coffee, I'd brainstorm and then reach out to new fruit buyers for the farm. I refused to let my mind wander back to John Morgan for 1 second, and my phone rang, and I rummaged through my pocketbook. On the second ring, I fished out the phone and saw a number I didn't recognize. If it was John calling from his house phone, I would do the right thing and turn around to talk to him in person. My heart hammered in my chest as I answered, "Hello." "Alice, I would love for you to join me and Jennifer this morning, please." Vicky's voice bubbled with the happiness I remembered from the old days. I touched my best friend necklace. "Where are you going?" "The Miracle Mile for coffee, and then I want to show you both my new idea for my future." Vicky's take-charge attitude might rub off. It's what I needed to do too. I shifted the wheel to turn in my new direction as I agreed. "We'll meet at the bookstore like we used to, but I can't stay for long." "Deal," Vicky said. I danced in my seat. A friend was what I needed. Vicky ended the call, and I threw my phone onto the passenger seat. Today I'd find out where Vicky had spent the last few years and avoid all conversations about John. No one pretended to be dead without a good reason. Chapter 22. Near my ear, something rang on the bedside night table. For a few seconds, I ignored it, but then remembered it might be the FBI. They hadn't called me. I woke up and glanced at the number on the voicemail message. No caller ID available might mean it was the FBI or a telemarketer. I licked my lower lip and tasted strawberries. Alice's scent was in the air. I turned to my side, but where she'd slept was cold as if she'd been gone for a while, and I rubbed my forehead. I never slept like this. Then I picked up my phone and hit play. A garbled voice that had been processed through a changer spoke. "John, your girlfriend was smart enough to leave you. You're the reason she'll die now. Prepare to live with what you've done." My body went still. Why had the FBI done nothing? This was something I needed to solve on my own or use more of the Morgan security. I stood and walked to the window. Money was power. The sun was in the morning sky. I clutched my phone, threw on my pants, and then made the one call I'd never wanted to make. And Peter answered. "This is a surprise, I said. "I need your help." "How?" The coldness between us didn't deter me. I had to get my brother's help. The FBI wasn't working fast enough. "Let me play you a message." The repeat of the threat to Alice made my blood freeze. Peter sucked in an audible breath as the voicemail played. My heartbeat quickened as the deadly voice sent a chill down my spine. I shrugged into a shirt. As the voice finished, I said, "I need to find Alice before anything happens to her." Peter didn't hesitate. What do you want me to do?" I ran one hand through the left side of my hair. "My brother would help. You have the staff to find her fast." "You need me to employ our handlers to get her back." My mind raced. Peter had our father's confidence, but not the venom that implied I was the always in trouble son. I'd call the local police once I finished with Peter. "Yes, thank you." "Why did she leave you in the first place?" I straightened my back. Now was not the time for this. "I've no idea, and it doesn't matter right now. Alice's safety is on the line." "I'm on it. I'd recommend you talk to Vicky. They were friends." My eyebrows arched. Now that was a good idea. "Is she up?" "She's not here. She left the house early this morning. She mentioned that dress shop again and a future fashion empire she'd build." I changed my screen while I spoke to my brother so I could make a note. "Does she have a cell?" I bought it for her yesterday. I'll text you the number, but it's the same as when she left. Even better, Peter wasn't completely our father. Thanks. We are family. Dad was right about one thing. I rolled my shoulders. I might have spoken too soon. What was that? I don't want children or a relationship, John. I'm more than happy if you live that life, and then I will leave money to nieces and nephews. My mouth opened and wouldn't close all the way. Why? I don't want to be like our dad. I wish I didn't remember Mom. I scratched my head. We'd talk once everything was over. I might have been too hard on my brother. Peter, once I find Alice and make sure she is safe, then let's sit down and talk. Deal. We hung up. My brother would have specialized guards a phone call away, and the local Miami PD would be on my side. I probably should have called them already, but I thought the FBI and Morgan security would be enough. I held myself together and dialed. This is the emergency line. How can we help you? I swallowed, aware that every word I spoke was recorded. Someone left me 2 threats that they intend to kill Alice Collins. Now she's disappeared, and I don't want anything to happen to her. The word kill must have been all I needed to say. The second I finished my sentence, the woman on the phone responded, "Dispatch is on its way, Mr. Morgan." Of course, everyone knew who I was. Today I'd have to use the name. Thanks. I hung up the phone and gazed out at the morning sun. The smell of coffee from the automatic machine permeated the air. I went to the garage, but Alice's SUV was gone. I picked up my phone to call her, but the squad car squealed in the distance. In the front hall, I put on my socks, but left my sneakers at the door. My mind ran through everything. Alice would likely go to her parents. Her mother hated me. If I went to her as I was, I'd smell of sex. A shower would cure me, but there was no time. Instead, I walked into the kitchen, picked up my phone, texted Vicky and Alice to call me, and poured 2 mugs of coffee. One was an offering to the officer who would arrive any moment. The silence in the house made my skin itchy. I sipped my coffee. The caffeine sent my blood into overdrive. I had to do more. I picked up my phone again. No text from Alice, no missed calls. Her mother might have answers. As I dialed her house phone, I prayed everything was fine and that Alice was there. On the second ring, her mother Ellie answered. Hello? Mrs. Collins? The gasp held obvious disdain. John Morgan. Now wasn't the time to win her over. My words rushed together. Is Alice there? She's not with you? The more people that looked for Alice, the safer she might be. I had to tell her. I blinked, and no police cars were on my street yet. I know you don't like me. Like is too soft a word, Mr. Collins. My daughter deserves better than you. I agree. She deserves everything the world can offer her. Then let her go. A lump formed in my throat, and I couldn't get rid of it. I can't. Her loud breath said plenty. Why are you calling me? I closed my eyes. I wished I didn't have to say this. Alice is in danger. Someone wants to kill her because of me, and now I don't know where she is. What do you mean, kill her? I thought the news said that was because of the threat to the president, and that was your brother, Peter Morgan, who sent that security car outside our farm. Her words were crystal clear. I blinked, and in the distance I saw the lights of police cars. Someone wants to murder her. Who? There was so much to say, but I had no answers. I don't know. The police are on their way to my house to pick up the threats. She's gone. I don't know where she is, and I was wondering if she contacted you. Oh my goodness. You're not making this up. My daughter had better be safe. I walked toward my shoes and slipped them on. Call her. She's not answering my calls or texts. She'll answer mine. Give me your address, John. I'll send her brother to you to get as much information as possible. Unlocking the front door, I stepped outside. The blaring sun made my skin heat. I told her my address and then said, "The police are here now, Mrs. Collins. Please let me know if you find her." The siren stopped in my front lawn, but the black SUV behind them held a camera crew. I pressed my lips together and stared into the tinted windows of the police cruiser that was followed by a local station. Years of training told me television cameras might make everything worse. It would illuminate angles that the bad guys shouldn't know. With luck, Alice was fine, but I'd not take that chance. The officer who had been speaking to Alice at the wake got out of the patrol car. Good, at least this man knew her and knew she was a sweetheart. Rafe, Alice is in danger. The man stepped closer on the grass as cameras took our picture. How? With my head down, I led them to the front door. I sent this to the FBI the other day. I slipped the letter in the plastic bag into the other man's hand. I stared at the camera crew and then said, "Please come inside." Rafe walked inside and I closed the door. The officer put on plastic gloves and I handed him my phone to listen to the message. Here, this is what I heard this morning. I hit replay on speaker, knowing there was no way to recognize the distorted voice pattern. Rafe read the note and listened to the short message. Where is Alice now? My heart beat in my chest, loud. I don't know. Alice was always a kind-hearted girl. I don't want her in any sort of trouble. My gut twisted, but I ignored the pain. Instead, I simply asked, will you help me find her? Rafe sucked in his lower lip and tapped his pen against a piece of paper. We solve crimes after they happen. I can release an APB to be on the lookout for her, but I can't promise anything. What I can do is track the voicemail and try to match the handwriting and any fingerprints in the database. No, they'd not find Alice's body somewhere in the bottom of a swamp picked apart by alligators. Do what you can. I can't let anything happen to her. Rafe's face paled as he said, Alice Collins will turn up fine. She's smart, sweet, and a loyal friend. She used to tutor me in math. I put my hand on the knob, feeling determined. And someone wants her dead because of me. I opened the door. Rafe walked outside but turned back before he reached the patrol car. I will do everything I can. She was always a good girl. Was meant past tense. I lifted my head. She is a good woman. Thanks again, Rafe. Rafe lifted my phone. Just doing my job. Can I keep this? Answer if it's Alice. No real choice existed. I shrugged as that was the only answer I could give, but then I stared at my brother's men who appeared on the street. I nodded at Rafe. I'll get another line connected. I'd send one of them to get me a phone as I went in search of Alice myself. Chapter 23. Alice parked my car and got out into morning sunshine. Palm trees lined the fashionable street where I intended to go a few hundred feet to meet my friend. I dropped my phone to the bottom of my bag and stopped to find it and hold it in my palms. My neck grew cold like someone watched me. I turned around but didn't see anything. I took my phone and walked forward. Then footsteps echoed in the alleyway behind me. My limbs shook as the image of a laser pointed to my head emerged in my mind. I ran fast down the street. The shuffle of footsteps followed me. My stomach was rock hard as I went as fast as I could. I turned onto the busy street with children eating ice cream, but my insides quaked. The heavy steps behind me became louder, and I blinked as I ran to blend into the people on the Miracle Mile. A large hand brushed against my back. A scream got stuck in my throat. Then Vicky grabbed my arm and dragged me into the bookstore. She pushed me toward the carpet between aisles of books like she might protect us both. Books wouldn't stop a bullet, I thought. I stood up and dusted off my jeans, but said nothing as my voice wasn't able to function at the moment. Perhaps John was right that someone wanted me dead. A pair of designer heels and a black pencil skirt joined us. I rocked on my feet and then gazed toward Jennifer. My hands trembled as I waited for the insult. Vicky, pale, asked, "Are you okay?" "Now, I'm here with you both." I walked to the window and looked out. So many people were outside and I had no idea who had frightened me. I'd have to call John. Without another word, Vicky dragged me farther into the bookstore and away from the glass. Who was that? I wiped my hands on my pants. In a minute, my heart would stop the frantic pace now that I was safe. I don't know. Some guy was following me. I have it on video from my phone. I'll text it to John and Peter. The guy chasing you had a cap on. You saw him? I couldn't make anything out, but perhaps the police can. I hate stalkers. Jennifer stood with her arms crossed, but then she sniffed the air. You smell like sex. My entire body heated. Leave it to Jennifer to change the subject. Vicky turned her small frame from where she'd been staring out of the window and looked at both her friends. She sniffed the air. You mean she smells like my brother's cologne? I stepped away from the pair of them. This was not a good conversation at all. My face warmed. Stop. You slept with John and then left him in bed. Jennifer tapped her foot and I realized we stood in the romance section. I thought good girls like you never did anything like that. There was no way a normal person would ever assume such a thing. I lifted my head and dared Jennifer. Like what? Jennifer laughed as if we shared a secret and didn't really hate each other. Like sleep with a man before marriage. Isn't that what you hated about me in high school? No, it was all in her superior attitude. I kept my hands crossed. You slept with every guy in our high school. Jennifer lifted her eyebrow. Not every guy. My feet grew apart. Like, who did you miss? Jennifer traced the neckline of her dress. Not your John or Colt. I opened my mouth, but Vicky cut me off. My brother had said someone was after you from the funeral. I didn't think about that when I invited you this morning, and I don't like you here without protection. Let it go, I shrugged. The further my mind went from those few moments, the better my sanity, though I quickly texted John. With only one bar of service, I could only hope it went through. My mind flashed to the gunshot through the glass doors of the funeral. I sighed. Creeps don't get more than a second of our thoughts. I'll be more careful from now on. Jennifer's grin grew wider. Yes, let's talk about you and John. I wouldn't run away from more sly insults. I took a step forward. We could talk about you and Peter. Jennifer shrugged. Old news. Vicky then tilted her head and stood next to me. No, I want to know too. What is going on between you and Peter? Jennifer's grin fell, and she shifted toward both of us. Peter and I are not in a relationship. I'd assumed they were. At the funeral, Jennifer had been on Peter's arm. You're not? Jennifer's perfectly formed nose on her flawless skin gave off an effervescent air that her long dark hair silhouetted with her angelic face. No, we're friends with benefits. Vicky's face went white. And you're okay with that? Jennifer flicked her hair behind her ears. Of course, it was my idea. I didn't believe a word. I'd never agreed to that with John. I'd die if another woman entered the picture. Maybe Jennifer never worried about that. On the outside, no one competed in looks with her. It was strange John hadn't texted me back right away. The tower hopefully sent my signal through as it read, sent. Vicky asked, does he not want a relationship? Poor Vicky had no idea what her brothers were like since she'd been dead for the past 6 years. It was time to ask what happened. Jennifer took Vicky's hands. As I said, I don't want one, so it doesn't matter. Part of me liked that Jennifer's life wasn't perfect. It might be wrong to say that out loud, so I kept my lips sealed. Jennifer continued, I'm not the one who walked out of your brother's bed today without a word. Why don't we ask Alice what's wrong with her relationship with John? Nothing's wrong. I hugged my waist. I had answered too fast, then I tried to spin out of it. My life isn't working as it is right now. I've not solved one of my problems. I have to help my parents, and I've always wanted to be independent. Vicky stared at Jennifer for a moment longer, and then she turned all her attention to me. Her calmness yet attentiveness were new characteristics. My skin prickled as Vicky said, there is a time for independence and a time for your heart. What is it you want? I decided the latest bestseller needed to be held, and I read the back blurb. I want both. For years I've told myself everything will be better when I move out on my own. It's time I do that. Today, my condo is ready for me to move in. I ordered the furniture and the moving trucks months ago. All I have to do is pick up my key and walk in the door. Jennifer tapped her foot. Then she stared down her nose. So how does John factor in? I turned toward Vicky, but I had no sympathy from her either. I put the book back on the shelf. I'd like to see him. Jennifer rolled her eyes. That's it? Guilt iced down my back, though I hadn't done anything wrong. I stared into Vicky's eyes. John doesn't love me. Vicky smiled, and the brightness caused a chain reaction inside of me. My insides quaked as Vicky said, I don't believe it. My body heated again, even if John hadn't called me immediately. You are saying that because he's your brother. Vicky took both of my hands in hers and waited for me to gaze into her pretty blue eyes. Exactly. Who knows him better than me? Alice, I have never seen John look at another woman the same way he looks at you. My heart hammered in my chest. Then maybe he'll want to date, but for today I have to do this. Jennifer's sigh interrupted the moment. What about me and Peter, Victoria? Vicky dropped my hand and her best friend's face flushed. Jennifer, I love my brother, and I want you both to find your happiness. Jennifer's rapid voice sharpened as she spun on her heels. You don't know anything. The bookstore had customers in our aisle. It was more than time to go. I said, I thought we came here today to see the store Vicky wants to open. Vicky walked down the aisle to gaze out the big window. I didn't see anything unusual in the morning crowd that was shopping on the $1 Million Boulevard. I scanned the street for signs of another bad guy, but nothing clicked in my head. Okay, I think the coast is clear. I joked, you sound like your brother, the FBI agent with that sentence. Both women chorused. John was in the FBI? I almost tripped over my feet. John had joined because of me. I hadn't realized I'd divulged state secrets. You didn't know? Vicky, he's your brother. I love my family. Vicky stood at the threshold, but I've been MIA for a while now. Jennifer joined in. Peter never said anything. I quipped, friends with benefits doesn't exactly inspire communication. Jennifer's tongue came out of her mouth like she'd swat this conversation in the butt. Then she sucked it back in and rolled her shoulders. Like you have any answers, Alice. I don't remember anyone ever finding you the least bit interesting. Vicky crossed her arms and turned toward Jennifer. You're both my friends, so stop that. Jennifer would never be my friend, but Vicky was always friends with everyone. Alone, she might end up adopting a 3-legged dog and every down-on-their-luck person we passed. I chose to smooth things over. Okay, let's go. Jennifer shook her head, but said nothing else. Instead, all three of us walked outside, and a few minutes later, we stood in front of an empty building on the Miracle Mile. I asked, is this where you want your shop? Vicky smiled and nodded her head, and Jennifer shrugged. I don't get what you want to shop for. No, I understood Vicky's plan to be independent and peered inside the empty window. This place has potential, Vicky. All the brides will want to come to you. Come. Vicky rifled through her pocketbook and found a key. She unlocked the door, and as she threw it open to the sunshine of the morning, she said, I bought this place yesterday to be the base of my fashion empire. The address is perfect. Good. Independence was something we should all enjoy. Jennifer had it with her telenovelas, Vicky would have it with her store and fashion world, and I would have it too once I found a buyer for the farm products, moved into my condo, and the potential threat was gone. The three walked inside, and Vicky locked the door right behind us. I twirled on my heels. I could imagine the mirrors on the walls and rows of changing rooms. The aisles would be filled with white dresses designed to help a woman feel beautiful on her special day. Right now, the place was completely empty of everything, but it had lots of potential. I've already sent the designs for how this place will look to my decorator. Victoria nodded, eager for someone to say something positive. I'll have it open in 2 weeks. Jennifer's face pulled back. You're crazy. That's a lot of work. I jumped forward. Vicky deserves someone's support. The Morgans can have this place open in an hour. Vicky added, and the store is just the start of my plans. Jennifer turned toward me. You have a point. My heart grew lighter that my friend was alive. My life had all the people I loved in it. One day soon, John would stop his emotional seesaw and recognize how beautiful his life could be. He had his family, and it was a miracle. Victoria paid neither of us any mind. Instead, she hugged herself and said, see, my friends can get along. Police sirens echoed in the air. My heart froze. My limbs grew goosebumps as I looked out of the glass. Jennifer pressed her nose against the window. I wonder if they arrested your stalker. The police cruiser stopped right outside the dress shop. I bit my lip and took a step into the shadow. The memory of the man who had followed me replayed in my mind. Then a split second later, John's car stopped in the street behind the police. My breath caught in my throat. Maybe that's why he hadn't returned my texts. Then my brother Colt got out of the passenger side. As John stepped from the driver's seat, I held the pendant at my neck. I hadn't seen Colt in months, so I had no idea how he stood right next to John like they were old friends. They had played football together. Perhaps my brother stopped at John's house, but that didn't seem right. I hadn't told my mother the address, though I had blocked her number the other day, which prevented her from calling. My brother hadn't asked for an address either. The two men walked toward the store. I asked, what are they doing here? Jennifer whistled and nudged my side with her elbow. Is that your brother? Yeah. I turned around now. I expected Vicky to be right behind us, but the two of us were alone. I scratched my head. Where is Vicky? Jennifer pushed my arm toward the door as the men knocked. It's better if you go out to the street and not let them in here. Why? My friend had vanished as if she were a ghost. Since she was alive, it was impossible, but I had no idea why Vicky would just take off. Surely the police were not here to arrest Vicky of all people. Okay, I'm leaving then. Jennifer smiled and stepped into the doorframe like she'd block anyone who entered. Something strange was going on, but right now I'd solve one mystery at a time. I stepped outside into the suffocating humidity. John didn't wait for one word. He reached out, grabbed me, and kissed me. The world faded to black with his touch. All that mattered was the fireworks inside me. Leaving John without a broken heart was no longer an option. Chapter 24. Get in the car, Colt gestured to John's Mercedes, and this made no sense. The last time I had seen either man was years ago at a football game. We never spoke, and we were not friends. My brother was in the Marines. If he was here in Miami, then he'd be with his daughter. My gaze shifted from Colt to John. John's expression seemed relieved. I bit my lower lip, held John's hand, and asked, well, why are you both here? You and Vicky texted me. Then John repeated Colt's message, get in the car. That wasn't an answer. I tugged my hand to take it from him, but he held firm. I shook my head. I have my own car in the parking lot. Colt worked in unison with John. He opened the back seat of the car. John walked me and placed his hand on my head as if he could protect me with his body from a shooter. Colt assessed the crowd. Sis, don't be an idiot. Get inside. The hand that brushed against my back burned in my memory. So did the moment the bullet broke through the glass. I sucked in my breath. I don't know what's going on, but it must be big if you are both here. Without another word, I squeezed into the back seat of the car, which I quickly realized was overdramatic. The legroom was more than ample, I thought, as both the men in the front seat were all muscle. They stared at each other. I crossed my arms as the men closed their doors. What? Colt turned to me from the passenger seat. John revved the engine. Colt asked, why weren't you at John's as planned? Did you two have a fight so you put your life in danger out of anger? My skin prickled and my forehead felt hot. This discussion was not to be had with Colt. I shook my head. No, and what a question. His gaze narrowed like he was a hawk and I was prey. Then why did you leave? Today is move-in day with my condo. It's time I do what I need. John gripped the wheel, and I caught his gaze in the mirror. His blue eyes looked haunted. Then he handed me his phone. I stared at the newest model of the phone and realized this wasn't what I'd seen before. Whatever it was that brought us together had better not be technology related. This looks brand new. John shook his head. Then he returned his attention to the black tarred road. I had to give my old one to the police. Listen to the voicemail. The police. The thought that something had happened to my father replayed in my mind. He couldn't have had another heart attack. No. Okay. I hit play. This couldn't be happening. A chill raced through my body. The man had been a real threat. I coughed as the message replayed again. Someone was following me. At least he didn't shoot me on the street. My entire body had a chill that ran through it. I could have been shot on the street where people buy wedding dresses and walk in their finest outfits to be seen. John's hand went to my spine and he quickly massaged my shoulders. Don't think about what might have been, Alice. You called and Vicky sent the video. The police are on it. Victoria dragged me inside the bookstore. Jennifer has the original footage of the man on video. Again, both men shared a look. Colt nodded. I'll deal with Jennifer and get that to the police with her sworn statement. John told my brother, thanks. This was all my fault. I should have listened and stayed at John's home. John sped his car down the street. Colt shook his head, stared back at me, and said, you have two options until this all clears up, sis. You come home with me to the parents' house, or you stay with John. You cannot be alone. No. I gripped John's new phone like it was a lifeline. My condo would only have locks, not the House of Morgan protection. I stared at John's profile. He kept his eyes on the road so I couldn't see them. I shook my head and turned my attention to my brother. This is idiotic. John tapped the steering wheel with his fingers. My head snapped toward him, and then I met his blue eyes for a moment in the mirror. My house has security that the farm doesn't have. To go back with John made my heart race. I recalled my fear at how close the stranger had come and decided I'd stay without one more complaint until the man was caught. It wouldn't be too long, not with video evidence, I nodded. John's house is free of Mom and her constant negativity. Colt stared at John next to him in the front seat. John nodded back, and then Colt ran his hands through his hair. Mom has good reasons for not trusting the Morgans. She tried to call you. I reached for my phone and unblocked my mother's telephone number. As my fingers clicked, my mind did the same. Whatever happened to fuel my mother's opinion of the Morgans, my brother knew. John didn't have a clue how much my mother despised his family. I pressed my lips together as John told Colt, you were the quarterback the year I was running back. Remember? Football seemed to be John's argument that Colt could leave me with him. My mind prepared an argument for when that didn't work. Then my brother shrugged. Which is why I can let my sister stay with you. I don't think you're like your brother or father. How did football translate into trust? I blinked, but kept my silence. And John said, Alice, you didn't have to leave alone this morning. Yes, I did. Though it hadn't worked out in my favor, I'd had to reach out for my independence. If I'd stayed in his bed, I would have turned into a needy sex slave who begged for another moment of John's time. Not how I envisioned myself. I lifted my chin. I'll stay for a few more days. A few days I could handle. I dropped the phones on the seat beside me like they were heavy bricks. John stopped at a light. Colt, want to stay for dinner then? John seemed relieved as the light turned green and he accelerated the car. He had to know how he affected me. All my life I'd had this overreaching crush on him that never wavered. My brother's brown eyes met mine. He nodded. Yeah, John, we should catch up. Strange. They drove back into the driveway of John's house where cameras waited outside. I kept my head down until the garage door closed. Despite the walls, I rushed inside with both men on either end of me. Once inside, I rushed to pick up the flowers that John and I knocked down last night with the stand before my brother saw it. A minute later, he walked in with John and I squared my shoulders. Colt nodded at me and said, Text Mom, you're here and you're safe. My mind went blank. Mom? Colt again met John's gaze, then he turned to me. Yeah. Again I was hit with a jolt. Colt knew something I didn't about our mother. John asked, anybody want something to drink? Water, coffee, soda? I took off my shoes and left them at the front door. Colt walked in like he'd been here all morning. He slapped John on the back and smiled. Iced tea. Me too, I said. John went toward the kitchen, so I tapped my brother on the arm. I'd asked my questions before John came back. Come on, Colt, let's go to the living room and sit down. He followed me. The sun shone bright in the window that faced the bay. I took a step toward the clear glass, but then my brother blocked the sun. Now you can tell me why you left here without John's listening in. My face heated. No, I'd not tell him that. I wanted my independence. I've lived with Mom and Dad for a while, and Mom always drives me crazy. I asked why you left John's side, not Mom's. Adrenaline rushed in my veins. I like him. He shrugged his shoulders like I was the one that needed to see reason. That's not a reason to put yourself in danger. The birds chirped out the window as palm trees rustled in the breeze. I hugged my waist. I'd steer this conversation now. Yeah, it is. You know our mother hates his family. Instead of looking at me, he turned toward the blue waves outside the window. She doesn't hate John. She doesn't know him. I don't even hate John. I stood next to my brother, staring up at his profile. Even you should hate the others? His face turned red. Let's not talk about me. What's going on with you? I'm angry she disowned me. Again. I took a step backwards. In the background, John put on some music. She's been like that all our lives. Don't let her get to you. Easier said than done. I tucked my hair behind my ear. I was supposed to move into my condo. Colt crossed his arms. Why didn't you discuss it with your boyfriend? He's not my boyfriend. That just blurted out as a defense. I wished I could take the words back. My feelings for John were too complicated. He's not? So I should go in there and beat him? I grabbed my brother's arm with both hands. No. Colt called out over the music. John, would you date my sister? John walked inside with 3 glasses of iced tea and placed them on the table next to him. Yes, I already said I'd marry her. The last time you said that it didn't end well. Again, he told the same lie to my family. Everyone was liable to believe it. I shook my head. This was ridiculous. Colt, stay out of my life. Wait, don't you have to get back to Clara? You want me to leave so you can talk to your guy? Stop it, Colt. Sorry, I can't stay for dinner, John, Colt said. My entire body heated. I pushed my brother to the door. He stalled and dug his heels in. If you want this guy, then go for it, sis. Don't let what Mom says get in your head. No answers on what charged up my mother against John in the first place. I'd ask later. It was more important to get Colt out the door before he had it in his head to speak to Mom about wedding planning. Thank you. He stalled again. Perhaps talking to Colt was a bad idea. He placed his hands in his pockets. For what? The Marines had transformed my brother into someone nicer, but he was still my family. I nodded. For support, no matter what I choose. Colt glared at John, who stayed quiet throughout all this. You're my sister. I'll kill him for you if I have to. Colt then kissed my forehead. Too much discussion about death. Everyone's heads stayed attached to their bodies in my mind, and no bullet would graze any of them. Personally, I like John's head on his body. We do have to talk about something else. John ducked out of the room, scratching the back of his head. What? I lowered my voice. Peter Morgan wants to end our contract. Colt's gaze turned to ice. He reminded me of our mother as he said, then let's find new buyers. It's one of the things I wanted to work on at my condo, away from distractions. Close your bedroom door and use the computer. Colt crossed his arms. You think John will stop you from working? John's footsteps echoed behind me. My body tensed. No. I had already prepared this. Wish you could stay. John came in with a cheese tray. As neither of us were speaking, he asked, What's going on? My brother shrugged. We're talking business. Alice just told me that your brother canceled the contract. I took the tray from John and set it next to the iced teas as he said, I'll buy all your products and get them into stores. I waved my arms in front of the men. No one would shake on that offer. You don't have the business to do that. You're not Peter. John's expression steeled. I hope I'm not. Then don't try to throw money at us like we're desperate. We'll find a buyer. I know what I'm doing, and my family will not take charity. My voice was sharp and left no room for argument. John took a step back, his expression confused as he tried to understand me. He nodded, but countered, Can I approach this again if I have a business plan you approve of? If I said no, I'd sound like a harpy. I rubbed my arms. Sure. John's smile dazzled the room. Perfect. It gives me a reason to get to know the farm better. Did Colt get you to say why you left? This was not going to happen. I stood between the men and crossed my arms. We should talk alone. Then I turned and gave my brother a slight nudge toward the door. That's my sister's way of telling me to leave. I'll go home to Clara. Do we still have that patrol car around the farm? Absolutely. John nodded. Stay safe, sis. Colt opened the door to slip out. From the window, I blinked and saw a black car across the street from John's house. John's gaze must have followed mine as he pulled me inside and locked the side door. Those are Morgan men. Don't worry. Good. His family intended to save me. I sucked in my cheeks and walked away. John followed me without another word. In the living room, I slumped on the couch. He sat next to me. What's up? Why did you run this morning? My heartbeat grew loud in my ears as I said, I have wanted to be independent for years, John. My hand shook, but I hid it to my side for him not to see. He scooted closer to me. I played with my necklace as my heart raced. He then said, Last night we ended up in bed. Did I disappoint you somehow? All I could do was blink. That was definitely not it. I reached out and brushed his arm. Absolutely not. It was the best night of my life. He nodded. Mine too. Then what? His too. My head became dizzy as I stared back at him. I can't be one of those girls who forgets everything they are supposed to do because my childhood crush finally noticed me. The light in his eyes dimmed as if my words might have hurt him. He asked, "What are you saying then?" The last thing I wanted to do was hurt him. John was like the sunshine that fed the plants at my farm. My mouth went dry. That I want to take things slow. He shrugged. "You could have told me that this morning." The right words did not bubble forth. If I apologized and said I'd stay forever, then I'd be a fool. I rubbed my arms and changed the topic. "I intended to talk to you. I didn't know you would get some threat against me. I told you someone threatened you before." My lips were dry. I swallowed the entire glass of iced tea, but it didn't help. Nothing had happened since I moved in. You never gave me any updates. I assumed it was a misunderstanding. He reached for his tea as I placed my glass down and our hands touched. Instead of pulling back, he laced his fingers through mine. "As soon as I find out who it is that is threatening you, then we can go as slow as you like." The hum in my veins begged for him. "John, if I'm going to stay here, then we're going to have to be honest." His voice lowered. "What do you want to know?" I tugged my fingers back. If they touched, I'd be all over him within minutes. What is it about me now that was missing before? Nothing. I was just young and foolish, which made me blind. The boom in my soul woke me up, though I listened to the ache in my chest. "So this isn't about sticking it to your father, even though he is dead?" "No." That one word held so much depth that I didn't know if he was sincere or if I overread the strong negative reaction. I lowered my gaze. He didn't like me. I am not him. I straightened out a wrinkle in my jeans. "Have you let go of his shadow? Seems to me you made your life choices because of him." On a hunch, I gazed at him. The light was gone, and in its place was a riot of emotions. "That's really deep, Alice. Let me sort that out." Had I pushed too far? Overthinking never helped anything grow. Taking my own advice, I decided it was time for levity. Safe at the house meant no outside forces would get me. The only issue was how I was falling for John Morgan. I stood up and smiled. "Deal. Now what are we having for dinner? I'm getting hungry." John rose after me and we walked into the kitchen together. I fell behind to memorize his strong, broad shoulders and his squeezable butt. Last night my hands had raked all over him. Tonight, I'd hold back. Last night I realized how much I loved him. Now I was tied to him, but he couldn't know how deeply. Chapter 25. With a flutter in my belly, I sautéed the vegetables as John finished with the chicken in the frying pan. The flutter had everything to do with the man next to me. He added a few spices to his dish. I decided to test John's fortitude and reached for the pepper, adding it to the vegetables. My brother and father said that real men handled spices. Pepper wasn't much, but I was curious. After our conversation on the couch, I decided that everything would be all right if we did end up dating. John walked away from the meat and set the table. I found a bowl and added my vegetables. Then I opened the refrigerator and grabbed the bag with the rolls together. The accent wall that separated the kitchen and dining room was yellow. If I lived here full time, I'd suggest something brighter. In Miami, bland was not part of the decor. I smiled as we passed each other. Our partnership had the table set in no time. My father never helped my mother in the kitchen, but then he was in the fields until Ellie called him. John's brow shot up. With a wink, I continued to smile. He grabbed the rest of our dinner and called behind me, "What has made you so happy?" First, I put the food on the table and then placed my hand on my hip. "You." He took a step backwards. "Me?" Lighthearted, I felt as if I were floating as I rearranged the dishes and then sat down. "Yeah." "I thought you wanted to be free of me." As he sat, I scooted my chair closer so our knees brushed. "No, I said I wanted to go slow. There is a huge difference." The color of his eyes darkened. "Explain how you see us then." Fireworks exploded inside me. "You want an us?" As his hand fell onto my thigh, my body melted. "Yes," he answered. Every cell in my body woke up. I needed a kiss. I wanted to hear that, I guess. As my eyes closed, my heartbeat grew loud in my ears. I opened my lips, and then his met mine. The embers of last night burned hot inside me, and I ached for more. My hands wrapped around his back, feeling the muscles underneath his clothes. An alarm rang loudly in the air. John jumped out of his seat, and my body felt shaken from his sudden departure. "Go to your room and lock the door." My eyes scanned the area as my heart thrashed in my ears. My voice was fast and shaky. "You said this house was safe." John walked out of the dining room and assessed the front door. I ran behind him. "The police will be here and Morgan Security is on the way," he said. "I need my gun." Of course he had one. The FBI didn't let agents not carry. Then, as if he was walking toward a battlefield, he turned and headed toward the living area. Nothing seemed out of place except for the blare of the alarm. My limbs trembled as I followed him down the hall. John pointed to my room. "Go inside. Lock the door." I looked behind me, but no one was there. My hands were clammy, and I tried to stop shaking to tell him, "No, I'm staying right beside you." He kept his pace toward his room. "You're impossible to protect." My chin trembled, and every step we took echoed in my head. "Likewise, John, if this guy wants to hurt me to get to you, then he'll target you. I can't let that happen." Glass shattered behind us. John pushed me in front of him and then turned around in the hall. "Get to my bedroom so we can get my gun." A whimper escaped my mouth, but I turned around and went for his room. He needed his weapon. I swung open the door, and John rushed us both inside and then headed right for the dresser drawer. The second he stepped away from me, a coldness entered me. He grabbed a key from his pocket and unlocked a drawer. More glass shattered. I said in a low voice, "They have to be inside now. Hurry!" The clip of the gun made a snapping noise as he put everything together. John rushed back into the hall. With tight shoulders, I followed behind him. I grabbed his hip so I'd at least touch him. "If you won't lock the door and stay here, then stay behind my shoulder." With my elbows pressed to my sides, I ducked back. "What are you going to do?" "If someone is in my house here to hurt you, then he's a dead man." The image of how John held me to protect me from the bullet and how safe I felt in his arms replayed in my mind. I swallowed. Nothing stirred from the living room. Sirens echoed in the air as the police arrived. My stomach had rocks in it still, but I managed to breathe. A moment later, the house was flooded with lights. I rubbed my arms as John walked us toward the front door. The tingling in my chest stirred, but then he let in security to check every dark corner. My thoughts were scrambled. I crossed my hands until I saw Officer Rafe Solis and John together near the front door. Rafe said, "You two didn't let me finish my dinner." A nervous laugh escaped my lips, but then I swallowed. "We're sorry, Rafe." My vision blurred, and the truth was I wasn't focused on anything other than my heartbeat. Officer Solis said, "At least you're safe, Alice, and we'll keep you that way." Without another word, I scooted closer to John. Closeness helped rally my spirits, and I could see sharply again. A security guard came out of the garage and announced, "The window was broken, but it's not large enough for a man to get through." I shook my head. No, the goosebumps over my body weren't for nothing. There had been danger. I called out, "What about a woman?" Without thinking, I reached out and took John's hand. Heat traveled up my body as he asked, "What?" I turned back to the officer. My suggestion wasn't out of left field. Women can be assassins or trained killers. Officer Rafe nodded his head. "We'll search the house to be sure." Like the royal son, John lifted his head and the security guard reported, "I've called in a team to fix the window. They should be arriving soon." My breathing returned to normal and my body temperature regulated. "The House of Morgan has everyone on speed dial?" He pressed his palm toward mine, and the skin-to-skin contract sent me an electric pulse. "Yeah, Alice, I need you to be safe." Another round of adrenaline hit me, but for an entirely new reason. My body trembled. "Why?" My knees knocked together as he said, "You talk about homes and families like everyone should have one. I like it and hope to hear more about these things." "Talk about the perfect answer." I sighed. If we were alone, I'd throw myself at him. And Officer Solis interrupted my thoughts as he said to me, "That's a big admission coming from this guy, Alice. Between the Morgans and the Gonzalez family, everyone else at school seemed to have normal lives." A bark of a laugh escaped my lips. Jennifer's home life never crossed my mind. I had never tried to spend time with her or think about her. We all have difficulties in our families. My mom and I disagree, but despite her parting words, I know she cares about me. John shook his head. "At least you have a relationship where you can fight with her. She knows you're there, right in front of her." Rafe turned red, clearly thinking about his own affairs, and then stepped away from the two of us. "I'm investigating a break-in." He walked toward the garage, and now we were alone. My heart raced. I reached up and placed my hand on John's chin. He gazed into my eyes. With everyone around, I'd not beg for a kiss, though I'd like one. I sighed instead. "I don't know how you're so together despite everything." He wrapped his arms around my waist and held me close. Every cell in me woke up and begged for his attention. "I can't let anything happen to you." "That's all you have to say?" His eyes narrowed. What else did you expect?" "Perhaps that he cared about me and might love me. Not that I'd say that." Small pieces of ice went back into my veins. I stepped out of his arms. "Nothing, I guess." John, stiff, stood next to me as the house swarmed with people, and a few seconds later, Rafe came from the garage as security came out of the house. I stayed next to the cheese plate from earlier that made it somehow seem we were there for a dinner party. My heart rate spiked at the thought I might have just been an idiot. Someone might be in my house. I swallowed, but then security spoke first. "No one is here, sir." I released a huge breath, but then a car arrived outside, and a team of security went out to greet the new arrival. I hugged my waist as I waited. John nodded at the security officer without speaking. Who would be outside now? Rafe returned to join us. "I didn't find anything in the garage or attic. I'm going outside to check the grounds." John smiled. "Thanks." The police were supposed to collect fingerprints and clothing molecules to be brought back to a lab. That's what I saw in every cop show as procedure, but Rafe had no evidence bags. I stroked my throat. Then I held my breath as the door opened and two men carrying new panes of glass came in. Afraid, I stepped behind John, who reached behind me and rubbed the base of my spine. "It's okay. They will replace everything." Over his shoulder, I peered at the two new men. This is crazy. His massage helped calm me. He asked, "Why?" "Nothing on the farm gets fixed this fast when it breaks. Normally we have to patch things up, and then when we have the time we head to the store to buy whatever we need to put everything back together as best we can." His eyes closed while he took in my every word. At least my heart didn't race quite so much. He said, "I've never done that." Sometimes his life seemed so strange. "What about when your bike chain went off the track?" John shrugged. "I never thought about how it was fixed." "John, your world is very weird to me sometimes. Next you'll tell me you've never ordered off the dollar menu." A smile broke out on his face like he dared something exciting. "I was on stakeouts, though I usually had delivery from restaurants I approved of. But I went for fast food once last year. I'm still not a fan." "Once last year" were words that spoke volumes about his life. I shook my head. The glass repairmen were noisy but fast and slammed their car doors before driving away. I jumped but tried to stay calm. Not every noise had to scare me. Whoever broke the window was gone now. There was no evidence of a break-in. Could have been a ball from a kid next door, but I didn't believe that. There had to be a rational explanation. John locked the front door, showed me a number combination to set a new security code, and then let his shoulders slump. I gazed around the empty house. Everyone was gone, and we were alone again. My blood boiled. What if the intruder came back? My mind swirled as I massaged my chest. I walked closer to John and hoped a conversation would stop the fear building. "What happened today?" His eyebrows arched. "And someone tried to break in." The wrong answer. Perhaps I hadn't formed my question right. My body trembled. There had to be another reason, but John spoke to my fear. I swayed on my feet. "And we're staying here?" Without asking, he took my hands. "You saw how security worked. I didn't call anyone, and we had the cops and Morgan security within minutes. Do you have a better place in mind?" Unsure, my mind raced. "No." His presence was like a rock. "Then here is good. If I stayed next to him, I might feel safe." "Maybe." I tilted my head. "People don't usually want to murder me unless you count Jennifer the one time in high school I went out with Rafe." The spark between us fizzled. "You went out with Rafe? I don't remember any of this in school." He sounded jealous, so I quickly reassured him with a squeeze of his fingers. It was one date. We decided we would be friends, so it wasn't a big deal. Jennifer and Rafe were once inseparable, though his younger sister, Carol, was always complaining about her. "She works for your brother as his maid." The spark of heat grew again as he smiled. "You make light of situations a lot, but I don't remember much of anyone except you." Now was the time to ask. My heart skipped a beat as I hoped for an immediate yes. "It's part of my charm. Can I sleep with you tonight?" His lips pressed together. Not good. A shiver went up my spine. Worry that I'd ruined everything swept through me. "What about taking it slow?" I blinked. "Just sleep." I steadied my nerves. "I won't sleep at all if I'm alone." "Why?" We'd slept together the night before, which had been amazing. Tonight his arms needed to be around me. "I'm scared." The glimmer in his eyes told me he understood. A huge sigh of relief burst free as he squeezed my shoulders and said, "Then yes, you can sleep in my bed next to me." I smiled. "You're perfect." "Thank you is good enough." I shrugged. Tomorrow, I deal with the rest of the world. Now, if only I didn't turn into the sex slave I feared I'd become. At some point, I'd have to prove to myself that I had the gumption to stand on my own 2 feet alone in the world. It just wouldn't be tonight.